Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into Google's latest AI release, Gemini 3, to see if it really lives up to all the hype, and more importantly, how it stacks up against its biggest rivals.
So, let's just cut right to the chase. The big question on everyone's mind. You've got these powerhouses like OpenAI's GPT and Anthropic's Claude that have been dominating the field. The question is, can Google's new model actually take the crown?
Okay, so let's get the TLDR out of the way first. The verdict? It's complicated. Gemini 3 is absolutely a top-tier contender, no question. It dominates in some super critical areas, but then it shows some surprising weaknesses in others. It's really a story of raw, staggering intelligence that still needs a little bit of refinement. To really get a handle on its raw power, we've got to step into the arena of standardized tests, the benchmarks. This is where we see how these models compete on paper in a totally controlled environment. And honestly, the results are pretty eye-opening.
All right, first up, we're throwing it into the deep end with one of the toughest categories out there, PhD-level scientific knowledge. And we're not just talking about reciting facts here. This is about deep understanding and reasoning through really complex academic problems.
And wow, the results are in. Just look at this. Gemini 3 has a clear lead on the GPQA Diamond benchmark. Now, to be clear, this isn't just a small win. This test is packed with PhD-level scientific questions that are designed to stump actual experts. And Gemini isn't just winning, it's creating a pretty significant gap over its top competitors.
So, the verdict here is pretty clear, right? In the world of pure scientific and factual knowledge, the data is unambiguous. Gemini 3 Pro is the front runner. When it comes to textbook intelligence right now, it's pretty much in a class of its own.
Okay, but what about problems that aren't just about facts? The kind that need abstract, nonverbal thinking. This is a huge challenge for AI. So let's take a look at the ARC AGI-2 benchmark, which tests the ability to solve these visual puzzles that you just can't solve with language alone.
And this is where things get really interesting. I mean, look at that score. It nearly doubles its closest competitor. That's huge. This suggests a really core improvement in just fundamental problem solving, a sign that Google is making some serious headway in developing more general intelligence. And this abstract thinking isn't just for puzzles. It bleeds right over into its powerful multimodal skills. In a super demanding test designed to understand complex architectural drawings, counting doors, windows, and rooms from a floor plan, Gemini 3 Pro proved to be the strongest overall performer. It just showcases its native ability to reason across different types of information.
Okay, so it's a beast at science and puzzles, but how does all that raw intelligence hold up in the real world of coding? Because this is a massive battleground for these AI models and a huge driver for developers picking which one to use.
And here's where the story takes a twist. On Swebench, which is a really tough benchmark that tests the ability to solve real-world software issues from GitHub, Gemini 3 is super competitive, but it's actually Anthropic's Claude Opus 4.5 that takes the crown. This is our first real hint that being the smartest on paper doesn't mean you win every time. Which brings us to a super important point, right? Benchmarks don't tell you everything. They're kind of like the combine in sports, great for measuring raw stats. But what happens when you put these models on the field for a real project?
And this quote from a developer, it just says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly captures that gap between the lab and the real world. A developer gave all three top models the job of building a feature in an existing complex codebase. And while Gemini got a working product, it just lacked the polish and completeness of its competitors. It did the job, sure, but only the bare minimum.
And you know what? This isn't just one person's opinion. You see this kind of feedback all over developer communities. In forums and discussions, a lot of people are finding the Pro model kind of difficult and frustrating for complex coding. It seems like you have to give it extremely precise, perfectly crafted prompts to get good results, and it can get confused or go off track pretty easily if your instructions aren't crystal clear. But here's the crazy part. The same people who are frustrated with it also point out its incredible, almost paradoxical strength. For tasks that involve vision, like, say, fixing a user interface from just a screenshot, its power is reportedly unmatched. So the lesson here is, if you know exactly how to ask, its specialized skills are absolutely world-class. So this brings us to Google's strategy. If it can't always be the most user-friendly, how does it win? Well, it's all about price, power, and perks. If it's not always the most polished, Google's making sure it's one of the most powerful and accessible. First up, let's talk about the absolute killer feature,
A 1 million token context window. Seriously, a million tokens. For anyone who doesn't know, the context window is basically the model's short-term memory. And a million tokens, that is a truly staggering amount of information to process in one go.
I mean, to put that in perspective for you, it's 5 times bigger than its main rivals. This isn't just a little step up. It's a massive leap. It lets developers feed the model an entire codebase, or lets researchers analyze full-length books, all in one shot. It's a game changer.
And what about the price tag? Well, for devs using the API, Google is playing hardball. As you can see right here, it is just dramatically cheaper than GPT 5.1 for the same amount of work. This makes its immense power far more accessible for building new things.
Okay, so we've seen the good, the bad, and the brilliant. What should you take away from all this? What's the final verdict? Let's wrap this all up.
You know, Gemini 3 Pro is really a model of extremes. It's got this mind-blowing, state-of-the-art brain, a massive context window, and incredible built-in multimodal skills, all at a fantastic price. But its real-world coding performance still needs some work, and you really have to be skilled with your prompts to unlock its full potential. It's like having the most intelligent engine, but it's not yet in the most user-friendly car.
So this leaves us with one big final question. The raw intelligence is there, no doubt about it. Google has built an incredibly powerful engine, a true leader in pure brain power. The question now is whether they can fine-tune it to be as useful, reliable, and polished as it is smart. That right there is going to be the true test of whether Gemini 3 becomes the undisputed champion.